Just go
Now we're live.
Hi, everybody.
of course, everybody. Brian Konowski, and of course, the known real host. I also have I have a set of friends of mine here, as well as we have a special guest here tonight, Stuart Chaifetz, a father of a autistic son, who has been verbally and mentally abused by his teachers. Okay, so Stuart, would you go ahead and please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I really appreciate you inviting me here for this. It's been 5 years now since I put my video out. If you haven't seen it, you can go to nomoreteacherbullies.com. That's the website I set up to see the video and other information about it. But the short story is that it took me a long time, unfortunately, to realize that my son was being tormented by his teacher and his aides. But when I realized, when I investigated as far as I could, I put a small audio recorder on him and on a Friday morning, and what I heard when I listened to it was horrifying. Just all throughout the day, he was just being treated horribly, and this is how I knew that. And the reason why I did that was because I had seen him going through a lot of changes. That something was hurting him, and I couldn't figure it out because unfortunately the teacher was really duplicitous. She was very two-faced. She always came off as this nice person, but then when I heard the terrible things she was saying on the audio, it really was just totally devastating and shocking. And I took to the school. I wanted to see if I can get her fired. Unfortunately, the teacher unions in New Jersey and elsewhere are so strong that they put the teachers above children. And it's a long story, which again, if you go to even our Facebook page, which is Facebook.com/NoMoreTeacherBullies, you can read a lot of the stuff that happened there. But the truth is that children in schools have really almost no rights. It's all about lawyers and teacher unions and putting everyone above the rights of children and their families. And that really needs to change. It's something that I want to work on. I've tried to do it as much as I can, but it's going to take a really enormous battle because there's so much money involved and power between the unions and the school boards and everyone else, that oftentimes children being bullied or tormented or even hurt is swept under the rug. And I wasn't willing to accept that. I've been an activist most of my life. I fight for animals, against animal cruelty. And so I took that same skills that I had, and I said, I'm not letting them get away with this. So I recorded a video just to let people know what's going on. It was really telling my son's story. And it's been seen more than 5 million times. At the time I released it, it went worldwide. And I think one of the reasons why is because it's a story that happened to many families. It happens in probably every school where someone is being bullied by a teacher or an aide and nobody wants to help them. And I think just putting the story out there helped many people just by acknowledging that it happens. That, unfortunately, many children are ignored by their parents or other adults, and the bullying just goes on and on and on. And the first step in stopping it is to acknowledge that it exists, because there are many people who don't want to do that. People want to say our schools are, their particular school's great, nothing bad happens, and they get offended if you try to say that something bad happened there. So it's really interesting to see all the people who hated me for putting that out, like the teacher unions and certain people in the PTA and things like that. But the people who felt, that it affected them were people who had been bullied themselves. And I had more than 5,000 emails from people. I had senior citizens. I remember this one senior citizen from Finland who wrote to me that he had been bullied as a child by his teacher, and it stayed with him as even in his later years. I remember there were young kids. There was any person you can imagine. There were gay kids. There was this Mormon girl who was being bullied because of her religion. So people are bullied because of their skin color, if there are special needs, if they are of a certain religion, whatever it is. It all comes from the same really bad place, and it's important for parents to listen to their kids and to understand it and to fight for them, and for friends of people to stand up for them and just be there as support and say, it's not you. You're not the bad person here. It's the person who's hurting you. They've got the problem. You're a good person. Just keep believing in yourself, and we'll be there to help you. So that's really what this whole experience has been about. And even again, it's been 5 years, but I think it's still relevant because so many people are still being abused in schools. It just never stops, and it may never stop because there's always going to be people with just cruelty in their hearts. And what we need to do then is just expose them constantly and continue to help those who have been hurt.
Now, can I ask you, what did the education department say when they found out that you put a body camera on your kid and your son?
Right. Well, I should say it was just audio, just to be clear. But I mean, look, I took when I heard that audio, I think it was like 5 o'clock that night when I came home, I started listening to it. And my son never went back to that school. And I had meetings with administrators, and I had been an activist anyway. I had run for the school board fighting for special needs kids. I was a real pain to them because I had been fighting for special education for years in the school district to fight against cuts. So I think they understood how bad the situation was. Unfortunately, what happened is that after, they said they dealt with it, but they couldn't tell me anything because of human resources rules. And this is where it becomes, again, that children and families have no rights, is that, your child was abused by, an employee in the school district, and they can't tell you what happened because that person who was cruel to your child has more rights than your child does. And then I said, well, to hell with that. I'm not going to sit and take that. And that's when I released the video and everything that happened after that. So in many school districts, however, and I've been contacted by many parents over the years asking for help, how to wire their own children, put a recorder on them. And, oftentimes, if, there are school districts that fight against the parent because they don't want it to get out that they had this bullying situation in school because it makes them look bad. So oftentimes parents find themselves isolated, the ones who stand up for their kids, because unfortunately there are many who don't stand up for their kids. But the ones who do, if they don't have my experience being an activist, not afraid of public speaking, being able to reach out to media, that they feel very isolated and attacked. And I've tried to help those people out, over the past 5 years, just letting them know again that they're not alone. So it's a bad situation. I really wish that, that we could form this nationwide parent-family organization that could stand up to the teacher unions and the lawyers who make millions off our schools and everyone else, the school boards, and say, you know what? Everyone's got representation in the school district except for the kids. They are the ones who are totally defenseless, and families as well. And teacher unions and school districts will they'll fight amongst themselves, but oftentimes you see the school just willing to concede to the unions because they don't want to get sued by them. It's a really bad situation. So I do hope that one day someone with, $100 billion decides he or she wants to help bullied kids and says, you know what, it's time that we stood up. We need an organization who can stand up to the teacher unions and the school boards and everyone else who don't have the best interest of children at heart. Unfortunately, until then, we have to, it's like keep talking to everybody, keep trying to give strength to everyone, keep just keep fighting, keep standing up and keep fighting. But it is a very difficult battle. And, I can tell you in my case that, and I'm smiling about it because now it's funny, but the teacher union paid lawyer they threatened to sue me if I didn't take the video down. Mm-hmm. And I saw
I saw like
the post that you post about it, and I was like, of course, because they don't want their true character to show, but I was hoping that you would keep it up, and I'm happy you did.
Right, and let me just, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is because, they will try, other parents out there, you may be just, they'll try to intimidate you, but what I did was, I wrote a response back, which you can see on our Facebook page. I basically told them to go to hell. I said, please sue me because I'd love to get your client in court and, get her in a deposition. And I never heard, and what I also did was I printed out a copy and I walked it into the lawyer's office and I handed it to him. I said, make sure he gets my response. And because when you stand up to bullies, not only in the schools, but you got these teacher union lawyers who try to bully parents, most of the time, that's all they have. They try to make you afraid. So don't be afraid. Oftentimes, they're just trying to scare you into submission. But fear is such a bad way to go, because once you start giving into fear, you'll see people just doing terrible things to you and your family. So you always got to be strong. You always got to fight. And, I've challenged the teacher unions many times to debate me on this. They won't even talk to me. They won't respond. They won't do anything because, they spend tens of millions of dollars a year here in New Jersey on politicians, buying politicians. And they don't, what happened to one young autistic child in Cherry Hill meant nothing to them. They will never care about the children no matter what they say because their deeds speak louder than words. They hurt children. Teacher unions that fight to keep bad teachers in schools hurt children. And I hope that message gets out as well.
Yeah,
Of course.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely, Stuart. One of the things we kind of want to, of course, ask. Of course, when you first got those tapes, what was your first reaction before you started listening to those tapes?
Well, if you do watch the video, I won't repeat it because I think it's like a 17-minute long video, and I tell the whole story. But I had realized at that point that going through like every reasonable means to find out why my son was having such problems, and I wish I hadn't. By the way, I will always regret that it took me 4 or 5 months to figure out what happened. I wish I had put the recorder on him the first day so I could have ended this cruelty sooner. But I went through all these steps to find out what happened. And the final conclusion I came to was somebody was being cruel to him in that room, and I needed to find out, since whenever I was there they were nice. I needed to, just show how they were. And I can tell you that I remember playing the audio for the first time. And I think it was within a minute, 2 minutes, I heard the first bad thing. And I just, I was furious. And every few minutes, I just became angrier and angrier because I heard these people abusing my son. And, here's something that I learned a long time ago, is that anger often comes from pain. So it hurt so much to hear my beautiful, beloved son being treated so cruelly that my anger just became fiercer and fiercer.
Oh yeah, because you especially expressed the feel. I mean, there's a point where you, like on the teachers and staff that caused the harassment and bullying to him, there's a point you did snap because you were like, enough is enough.
Right.
You were just tired of it.
Right. I mean, it was, and that was really one of the most painful things I had to do was listen. It was like a 6-hour audio, like 6 hours of recording.
So,
it was from the first gotten off. It was from him on the bus to when he came on the bus afterwards.
Wow.
And I just want to make one quick about the anger, is that it is very human and natural to get angry, but I believe strongly in nonviolence, and that's why I hope when people watch the video, it's supposed to be a video about a public proclamation that of my love for my son, and not cursing at these teachers and everything else, pointing out all the terrible things they did, but it's important to to push your anger in a nonviolent way. And I think also that was one of the reasons why this became such a viral international video and story, was because it's not, we need to transcend sometimes the pain that we feel to get the story out and to show people how much it hurts, but to do it in a very nonviolent and loving way. And I hope that's what I did, because, you know, people would say to me, oh, you know, I would have done something bad to these people. I'm like, I would never do that. You know, my whole thing is not about hurting people. It's about exposing those who do. So it's just a message to people out there, is that, you know, if you're angry, if you've been bullied, you're angry, just understand it's coming from the pain you're feeling. And then I you know, as difficult it is, it's really important for yourself, for your own protection and personal growth, to try to channel that anger in a positive way, and don't let it consume you, but to, you know, get your story out. Defend yourself. If no one else will defend you, if no one else will help you, defend yourself. Do what you need to do to heal the pain and the scars that you have received from these cruel people.
Excuse
If I can check another question. Sorry.
Excuse me. You said that you were divorced, so how does your ex-wife feel about the video? And I also have another question for you. How did it make you feel when you found out I was intoxicated while teaching the class? Because that to me was just the boiling point for me. And then when she called Keen a bastard, I literally wanted to go through the computer and just...
Well, I don't, no, and I believe me, my anger, you know, but then, and again, you know, just that's one of the reasons why I was bringing up how we deal with our anger nonviolently, because I think I had a blog on the Huffington Post, and I wrote that when I was listening to some of this stuff, I was punching a wall, because it just, there was no, you know, I was so, I mean, you know, your child is the most important person you will ever know in your life. And to see them hurt by someone, you know, again, pain turns to anger, and you know, so it was just so overwhelming that I had to have some release, even though that was not a great release, punching the wall. But you know, I would never punch a person. But then again, you know, I then, once I could get a grasp on the pain I was feeling, I knew what I had to do.
Can I interject here? I'm sorry, I had to put my iPad on charge, but I wanted that. I know autistic kids aren't as vocal as other kids are. So how did you know that he was being bullied? Was he acting out at home, or was he saying something?
Right. Well, my son at the time was very limited verbal. So he couldn't tell me anything about what was going on. So I knew, because he was actually, and it made sense in the end, but he was such a sweet, loving child. He never hurt anyone. But during the school, he was starting to lash out at these people. You know, he would hit them, and he was, I guess he was 12 or 11, 10 at the time. Sorry. It's been a long time now. And so he was a young boy, and so he started acting out, having all these behavioral problems, which he never had before. So that's how I knew it. And unfortunately, when I look back at like emails from the previous year, because he had this teacher the previous year, there were clues that things were starting to go wrong. And I think what happened is that he went on summer break, and then when he came back to he found himself in that same classroom on September, you know, early September, when school started again. He had enough. Like, he couldn't deal with it anymore, so he started lashing out. And so even though he couldn't tell me verbally something was wrong, you know, I realized it, you know, through that. And we had behaviors come in, and again, I regret that I like followed the rules, so to speak, for so long, where I was trying to figure out, you know, try to eliminate different things. Okay, behaviors came in, and he was fine, or this, but he wouldn't react then, and all these little pieces. So if there are parents out there, you know your child better than anyone. If you say something's wrong, then there is a good chance something is wrong. Don't wait. You know, find out, get in there, and protect your child, because no one else will. There were many people in and out of that room. There were many adults who were there. I think there were at least 5 women, if I'm remembering correctly, in the room at all time, who, even if they weren't participating in the abuse, they let it happen. And that is just a stain on all their souls, because it's something that happens a lot too. There are adults in all of these rooms who see abuse going on, and it's rare when you see someone who has the courage to put their job at risk to protect a child, but they're saints. I mean, the people who expose the cruel teachers or other cruel aides in their room, because it's not always teachers. I mean, in my room, it was the teacher and the aide being cruel to him. But, you know, it's important for people in these classrooms, when you see abuse, protect the children. That's, you know, that is a mark on your soul when you sit by when children are being abused. And verbal, and I'm not talking physical, I mean, verbal abuse is devastating. It can just really just destroy you and leave scars for years and affect how you are. You know, and I know that personally. I was bullied by a teacher when I was a young kid, so I know what it's like. And you know, it really affected my son in a bad way, and it took years and years for him to really get past it. And you know, he never did anything wrong. It was all these people doing it wrong to him.
So what was?
Anyway, Stuart. Now, in terms of the year before you found out, would you say there were any red flags before you found out?
Yeah, there were. I mean, there were red flags all over the place. I mean, it was, and especially, as I mentioned, you know, once I after the audio, I got the audio. I looked back at the year before, and I saw some emails that were you know, by themselves were a small red flag, but now when I had the full picture, it was a blazing red flag, a giant one. So yeah, you know, there are, you know, again, I regret that I was almost too much of a detective in this, trying to put all the pieces together. And I wish I just put the recorder on him, you know, the second day of school, as soon as I saw something was wrong, because I would have saved him months of going through with these evil people.
No.
In my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, Stuart. Because as some of you may not know, Stuart, you of course have tried to do legal action against the teachers and aides, but of course with their union laws and like their silence laws and everything, as you said in that video, you know, nobody would do anything.
Right. And I guess I should talk about that for a minute, just so people understand how corrupt the system is. Now, I had an audio, 6 hours of audio, where this teacher and the aides, multiple people in the room were saying terrible, terrible things. And the school, after school, probably wasn't going to do it originally. But, you know, once I put the pressure on them, they were going to fire her. And they went through the process. And it's amazing that you have people who deal with vulnerable children. They have these tenure rules where the teacher union paid lawyer sued the school district to get the audio thrown out on a technicality. And I was in court. I was there. And it wasn't that she was cleared. She was never found innocent. But this judge who didn't have any clue about the case, she didn't talk to me. I gave a deposition for the case, and she got facts wrong. And, you know, she called it you know, that it was recorded on the phone when it wasn't. And this was a legal court case. Facts matter. That was just one thing she got wrong. She made misstatements about things I said in the deposition. It was very Kafkaesque sitting in that courtroom when you saw this judge make factual errors and then say, okay, well, we're throwing the audio out on a technicality. And, you know, unfortunately, that's how the system works. So the point is that, you know, I know her lawyer was all happy about that, but the thing is that, you know, the school couldn't fire her, but what they were able to do at least is that she still teaches, but they moved her from the grade school where young kids, and they moved her to a high school where I was assured she was being watched. So just think about that for a second. So we have someone that everyone knows did some really awful things. They couldn't fire her, but they were smart enough and they knew enough to never let her teach young children again. And so then the school had to spend extra resources now watching someone who has a past of being cruel. So it's this awful expense of money that the teacher unions forced the school to. I mean, this woman should never have been around a classroom again. But the fact that there's this universal acknowledgement that she should never be teaching young children again, I think justifies my case. The fact that everyone knows she can never teach, a first grader or second grader again, and she has to be in this position where she's watched. So that's how messed up our school system is. I think whether, you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, I think we should all agree that when there's some kind of evidence that a teacher is bad, get them right out of school. But unfortunately, that's not what happens. It's a really sad situation. Sorry.
Let me just say this. The same similar thing happened to me with my case as well. I had 2 teachers torment me, follow me into the bathroom, and stop me from using the bathroom because I had gotten into an altercation with these teachers, but they didn't handle it the right way, and they were my teacher bullies for a couple months or so. And they caught the incident on camera with the 3 teachers gaining up on me and getting in my face. And the only thing the teacher was able to get was 2 days without pay. So they basically gave her 2 days off without pay.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say how sorry I am. And I hope you're okay. I mean, I hope you know that in your heart you didn't do anything wrong, that these people, again, there's these awful, awful people. Again, 99% of teachers could be great with good hearts, but that 1% represents tens of thousands of people who are out there hurting people just like you. And I just hope you know that, you didn't do anything wrong, that these people have this cruelty inside of them. And again, I'm sorry that, you didn't, that's the best we can do, but it really is, I hope it shocks people to hear something like that when you have people on video doing it and they're still allowed to teach children. It's no way, no other job. I'm 50 years old now. I've worked for different companies over the years. I've been a freelancer. I can't imagine any position other than a teacher where you could hurt a child and still keep your job, except for the one where you deal with the most vulnerable people, which is, some of these teachers dealing with, in schools. It makes no sense. And yet it goes on because we are unfortunately the victims of $1 million, $100 million organizations such as teacher unions. Again, they buy their ways out of this, and it's a stain on all their souls. And I mean that honestly, that any of these teacher union presidents who know that they are protecting people who hurt children, I don't know how they sleep at night unless they're sleeping on bags of cash that somehow they use to ease their consciousness. But really, I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry to every child who is abused and bullied by their teacher or fellow students or anyone. It really just is an unnecessary stain, a horror that happens to kids, and it hurts. It hurts more than I think people realize.
Excuse me, before my iPad dies, I have one more question, and sure. I'm so sorry my iPad is running out of battery. Do you think that teachers should have more screening when they go for teaching positions? Do you think that they should have a special class in college where they are trained not to be so angry and so, be more compassionate when they're working with children with special needs or any children for that matter?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, training, we need more training so these people know. The aides need to be trained better. But unfortunately, when someone has this cruelty in their heart, all the training in the world is not going to do it. That's why we need, for especially the younger classes where you have nonverbal children, I am 100% in favor of cameras in the classroom. I think that There is nothing wrong with that. You know, if someone's watching my child or your brother, your sister, I see no defense in keeping cameras out of those rooms. I think also there has to be an immediate, as long as there's some evidence that a teacher has been cruel, because I think sometimes bullied is too soft of a word. It's cruel, the cruelty they commit. And they need to be immediately fired. There shouldn't be any ifs, ands, or buts. Children have to come first. We all say that. Everybody says children matter. We love children, except when it comes to the schools and let the teachers do whatever. And if they get caught, maybe they'll get a slap on the wrist.
I mean, you're right, because they do have cameras on buses. They should have cameras in the classroom to make sure the teacher is doing their job and making sure the children are doing their job.
Yeah, it's if you take your child to a daycare, many of them have cameras because it makes sense. I don't think school should be a public place. It is a public place. Going back to that court case again, one of the things the judge said, well, these teachers had a right to privacy when they were being cruel to my son, and I'm like, that makes zero sense. You have a right to privacy in your own house, in your own, by yourself somewhere. But when you're with somebody's child and being cruel to them, you lose your right to privacy, especially in a school system. But, it's going to take a movement that doesn't exist yet to take back our schools from these teacher unions, to make it a place. Again, I'm not against teachers. I shouldn't even have to say that. I have many friends on Facebook who may be watching this who are teachers. I hope they realize that I'm not against them. And I'll tell you something. Some of the people who were really angry at what happened were teachers. I had past teachers from Akian's life. I had so many emails from teachers telling me how they hated these people who were cruel to him. So there's so many good teachers out there who love their students, want to do their best. But again, even 1% who are cruel, that represents tens of thousands of teachers. Just think of all the cruelty. Again, I was bullied by a teacher when I was a kid. I know other people who were bullied. It happens all the time. Sometimes you hear people talk about there's that one kid in the classroom that the teacher picks on. That's bullying. If you're making fun of someone and you pick that one kid to be the sacrificial lamb in your classroom and you make fun of them in front of everyone else, that is 100% wrong. And it goes on because people don't really want to think about it. They want to. So many parents. I had parents in the same room who, as my son, their kids were probably being abused too. Who were like, shunned. They shunned me. They wouldn't want to talk to me because I exposed what happened in there. It's amazing how many people just want to close their eyes and pretend that this doesn't happen, even when it's happened to their own kids. So that's why it's up to the rest of us. Parents, believe your kids, fight for your kids, your sister and your brother, your friends. If you see anyone being hurt by someone else, try to stand up, say something, or ask an adult who you know will help. Because if we don't do it, if we don't help each other, if we're not there to help the ones who are being hurt, they will continue to be hurt.
Yeah, absolutely, Stuart. Anyway, let's go on to your next link here, which is that your son was taken to the wrong house during I think if I remember correctly from your video, you said it was during the extended school year.
Right. So after this, a couple of years later, what he's talking about, and I have a second video up about it, where during the summer school, basically, summer school program, the bus driver and the bus aide took my son to the wrong house, let him into the wrong house, and left him there. And it's only by just luck that he got safely back home. Again, this was just, I was so angry, again, because it was such a really dangerous situation for them to do. And the same thing in the way that, when I released my video on the bullying, so many people said it had happened to them, but they never talked about it. It's a real situation where these bus drivers and the aides on the buses make terrible mistakes like this. I had a friend, I knew two people, this is my circle of friends and a doctor who told me the same thing had happened to their kid. It happens. It happens more than people realize. Where again, even if 90% of the bus drivers are good, you get a small fraction who are you know, not up to the job, and are these aides on these buses who don't get paid a lot of money, have no training, and they put children's life at risk. So, you know, I'm not afraid to speak out publicly. Again, I've been an activist since I'm 20 years old, fighting for animals against cruelty. So when I see a wrong, I don't keep quiet about it. And then I think that's important because it lets people who have also been similarly hurt to say, yes, that happened to me too. So you know, and I felt like I was all alone until I saw somebody speak out about it.
Yeah, absolutely, Stuart. Because the court people are watching, in that that you did try to deal with the bus aides and drivers at that time. The bus aide, I think from the bus aide that said, I saw two men from the door that was present as the student entered, and so I assumed everything was fine. Would you elaborate on that?
You mean you were breaking up a lot? So you're talking about what actually happened with the bus aide and all that? Okay, so yeah, so what happened was they drove to the wrong house down the street, and the bus aide said she took my son to the door. Again, my son was limited verbal at the time. You know, so he just went. He was complying. He went with her. She opened the door and just let him in, and then closed the door and walked away. And you know, luckily, there was an older woman who was there, who was walking her dog. And when she came back in, my son was there and said, you know, where's Dad? Because he didn't know what was going on. And she recognized him. And you know, I was outside waiting for the bus. And what happened? And I saw him walking down the street, coming towards me. So you do see, you know, when everybody makes mistakes, it's a human thing to make mistakes, but there are mistakes that put children's lives at risk. And bus aides and bus drivers who aren't paying attention, who don't know what they're doing, who do stupid things like this, they put in children's lives in danger. And again, it's not just my son. My son, the fact that both bullying and this bus thing happened to my son, it's not as much of a, you know, luck of the draw as people think. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. Just people don't talk about it. You know, there weren't that many people, I think, who put videos out about it like I did, which is why I think it became an issue, a bigger issue, because, you know, to hear people looking at this dad talking about what happened to his son, when for many people, their instinct is to be quiet. You don't want to make a russ. You know, you don't want people to know about it. You don't want to, you know, people are taught to be submissive in a sense. You know, people are scared of speaking out publicly because you know, there's this unfortunate thing out there. Excuse me. So that's why it is important for people to speak out when something goes wrong to them, no matter what it is, because you'll find that what happened to you has happened to 10,000 people before you, and it'll happen to another 10,000 after you, and on and on. So speaking out is important. You know, in my case, they were messing with the wrong kid, because I had zero fear about speaking my mind and telling people and releasing videos and doing this. So I just wish more people felt that same way.
Yeah, absolutely, Stuart. Because absolutely. Yeah, in terms of what you had, also from what you had in terms of experience, what would you say was the most heart-wrenching, especially from the tapes you've gotten and the case with the bus aide?
Well, they were very different. The bus aide situation, I don't think I've ever been angrier in my life, because his life was put at risk. I mean, he could have died. I mean, what if somebody was sleeping in that house and they had a gun in the house, and they go downstairs and they see this tall kid just sitting there? They could have shot him. So that was a very specific pain. Again, you know, anger comes from pain. So I was so furious. I couldn't think straight for days. I was so angry about what happened with the bus. What happened to him being tormented was a very different type of pain, because that was the emotional damage I saw was devastating. I mean, it was devastating to him. It devastated me because I loved him so much. He's my son. you know, it's almost indescribable how, you know, when you can listen to a child being told terrible things, young, innocent, wonderful, wonderful, pure soul of a child, and you see how these people are just hurting them. It's just awful. It's awful. And I you know, in addition to that, I'm someone who I was verbally and physically abused when I was a child. So I, of course, never wanted my son to have to go through anything like that. And then when, you know, to know that he did, and he, you know, he had the same pain that I did, that was a whole other layer of just devastation. But again, I'm not someone who, you know, I understand that and I feel it, but then I don't sit quietly about it. So you know, I think it's important for people to talk about these things and to fight back. So I'm a fighter. And when they, you know, they hurt him, I'm going to fight back non-violently, but I will expose the cruelty, and I will, you know, shame the people who did it.
Yeah, absolutely, Stuart, because especially for in the video, to the point you said, one of the most heart-wrenching moments on those tapes was the ones where your son asks, you know, if he can go see you after his mom, and then they of course go no, straight out no.
Right. Yeah, that was that. I mean, it's all bad. Believe me, everything was bad. And you guys didn't even. That was a 17-minute video I put out. The original version was 30 minutes long. Okay.
30 minutes.
And I cut it down to 17 because I had so many things to put in there, and it was just too much. So yeah, I mean, all that stuff was just evil to me. You know, he needed, you know, I was divorced at the time. I was his primary parent. He lives with me. He still lives with me most of the time. And, you know, it's the greatest honor of my life to raise my son. And, you know, to hear him innocently ask that was devastating, you know, but again, everything. There isn't anything that, you know, almost happened to him that wasn't painful, that didn't hurt. And, but that also just showed you, I think that was symbolic of just the base cruelty of these people, that he just asking a simple question and it was straightforward go. You know, that's just how mean they were. And, you know, these are people who had responsibility of a number of young, vulnerable children. And it just shows you how awful these schools can get sometimes.
So, Mr. Stuart, what was the aftermath of the video going viral? Did Akeem know that you were like famous for what he had gone through at all? Like, does he know that you're well known in the community now?
You know, it's a good stabilizing and humbling thing is that Akeem that stuff doesn't matter to him. Like, I'm going to step back for a second. So I told you I'm a comic book artist. I also colored children's storybooks. So one of a few of his favorite books, you know, an Arthur book and some other books, I painted. And, you know, you think, oh, I could show my kid, you know, this book I painted. Hey, I'm a big hero. It doesn't matter. He had no understanding of that. And it was good. It's good because it puts you into place. You realize things like that don't matter. Fame doesn't matter. How many people know you? It doesn't matter if 10 million people know you. It's all about who you are as a person. And you know, and if my son loves me and I love him, that's all that matters. So he, you know, it really is not, he doesn't have a basis for understanding, you know, that his story went, you know, for maybe a couple of weeks, he was one of the most famous kids in the world. I mean, it literally were, you know, this video was seen almost in every country in the world. Tens of millions of people saw news stories about it. So none of that matters. It didn't, you know, and I didn't try to let it affect me either. You know, you always have to be careful not to let yourself be, you know, consumed. I remember when at the time that video came out, there were other parents, like the guy who shot his daughter's iPad or something because she had lied to him or something, and I think he.
Oh yeah.
So that was like a viral video at the time, and he wrote to me. You know, he was a nice enough guy, but he said, "Hey, I'm getting all these parents who are in these viral videos together, and we're gonna put together like a whole thing and like, you know, try to claim some fortune off it." And I said, "I appreciate that, but that's not what I'm into. You know, I never made any money off the video. I didn't make a penny from any of this. I never sued anybody for money. It was more important to me as a father, as an activist, to get it out, to get that much justice for my son. Because again, you know, the legal system is against us, the schools are against us, the teacher unions are against us. Sometimes the best justice you can have is telling the truth and getting it out there and exposing the bad people. So that was more important to me than how many people knew my name or anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Stuart. Just kind of get everybody a little update. I mean, how old is Akian now?
He's 15.
Okay.
So that happened when he was 10 years old. So.
Just to interject here, we have 5 more minutes left.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Can I help you with anything? Yeah, let me just say a couple things. If you are someone who's been abused and you just need someone to talk to, you can email. I mean, a lot of times I can't really. I don't have any resources. I can't get you a lawyer or anything. But if you just need your pain acknowledged, you can write to me. My address is stuartchaifetz@gmail.com. If it's too difficult to spell, just go to nomoreteacherbullies.com or Facebook/nomoreteacherbullies. You can reach me through that. Just, again, I'm not there to, maybe not be able to get justice for you, but if you I noticed so many people just needed to tell their story. Don't keep it inside of you. Tell your story to me, tell your story to a friend, someone you trust, make your own blog, but get it out. Don't keep that pain inside of you, because I can tell you personally, when you keep that pain inside of you and you don't deal with it, when you don't talk about it, it starts to eat yourself up. It does have negative effects. It took me many, many years to deal with my anger from the things that I went through as a kid. In many ways, maybe I'm still dealing with those things. But it's important to get it out. It makes you stronger. Don't ever think that talking about your pain makes you weak. It's the exact opposite.
This is why we came together to start.
This is why we came together. We came together because we thought, against people is like enough is enough, and we need to step up the game, and let people speak out for themselves.
Right, and I love what you guys are doing, and it's very important. And if anyone's seeing this or on your Facebook page, you're not alone. I mean, that was a big message that I remember putting out when all this happened, and I tell it to radio stations, TV stations, and newspapers. I want people who've been hurt to know you are not alone. That there are so many people who care about you. You just haven't met them yet. So never give up. Don't give in to despair. Don't give in to the pain. Reach out. Maybe it'll take a while, but you will find someone who's going to reach that hand right back to you and help you pull out of the darkness that you're mired in. So you're just always remember that. Watch these amazing people's YouTube channel. Listen to them. Help them out. Help yourself out. You'll do the same thing. But it's all about just understanding that each and every one of us is a unique being. We never deserve the hurt that was given to us, and that we have a better life out there. Don't give up on yourself, and you will find that other people will not give up on you either.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Stewart. It was so lovely to meet you and hear your story, and thank you for being our first guest.
Well, and listen, thank you all. I really appreciate the invite. I hope you have many, many shows, and I'm gonna follow you guys, and I look forward to seeing your next show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. See you, Mr. Chaifetz.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well,
So guys, that was a really good interview. We should send him the links to all our pages so he can follow all of us.
yeah, definitely. For anybody watching, that wraps up our interview with Stuart Chaifetz, the father of an autistic son. And we'll see you guys later.
We'll see you guys later.
If you have a story to submit, submitted to disability.mentor@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to our program and talk to you guys later. Bye.
See you guys.
Talk to you guys later. We love you guys.